We begin with the devastation in Kentucky. More than 70 people are dead and over 100 remain missing as recovery efforts continue across the state. Hard-hit communities are still trying to comprehend the level of destruction left behind from the storms.
President Biden announced yesterday he will be traveling to Kentucky tomorrow to survey the damage and participate in a briefing with Governor Andy Beshear, who gave an emotional update on the state of recovery yesterday afternoon.
We have over 300 guardsmen that are active. They are out in our communities. They're doing everything from going door to door, though in many of these communities we don't have doors anymore. They're going rubble to rubble, searching hopefully for survivors, but otherwise to at least have certainty for families that we can advise them of their loss.
We have full team coverage with the latest on the ground across the region. NBC News correspondent Megan Fitzgerald has the latest on the Amazon warehouse that collapsed in Illinois. NBC News national reporter Dion Hampton has the latest developments on the people who died inside a candle factory during the tornadoes.
But we'll begin with NBC News Now correspondent Dasha Burns, who's live in Bowling Green, and NBC News correspondent Jay Gray, who was on the ground in Mayfield, Kentucky. Good morning to all of you. Dasha, thanks for being with us. We know Bowling Green was one of the towns hit hardest by the tornadoes, but actually the street I know you're on right now is dealing with an extraordinary amount of loss. Walk us through what the scene is like there and what happened to this neighborhood.
Hey, Savannah, Joe, good morning. You mentioned that more than 70 people have died in the state of Kentucky. 11 of them died right here on this street. And when you look at the damage and destruction behind me, it's a miracle that anybody survived. I'm going to step aside so you can take a look here. This is the Spring Hill subdivision. It's one of the newer subdivisions in Bowling Green. And you can see, I mean, it has been flattened completely. This home right here, you can see, was ripped off of its foundation entirely. I mean, we talked about people were hiding in their crawl spaces. That would do you no good in this situation. Even the basement, the crawl space has been completely ripped apart. The list of folks who died range in ages from infants to a 77-year-old. Savannah, Joe, 2 infants died in this neighborhood. A 4-year-old died, a 16-year-old. It looks like, from what we can glean from the information from the coroner's office, about 2 families, 5 members of one family and 4 members of another family, we believe, were killed right here in this neighborhood. You can see it's still without power. A lot of homes, thousands of homes in this area, 28,000 homes in Kentucky are still without power. The only reason we have some light this morning is because there are floodlights that have been set up. They're running on generators right now, and you can just see this destruction. I'll tell you guys, we drove by here last night, and the first time I saw this, looking at this destruction and imagining those moments that families experienced, it is jaw-dropping, it is heartbreaking, and it's impossible to describe what it's like to actually look at this in person, guys.
Hard to imagine so much loss just in that one area there. Jay, we want to bring you in. Ever since the very beginning when word of these tornadoes surfaced, we've been talking about Mayfield, where you are. How are the recovery efforts going there this morning?
Yeah, Joe, very slow, and the heartache that Dasha describes there in Bowling Green is being felt here as well, and the devastation, it's seemingly everywhere too. Look, this is the undercarriage of a transport van. This massive vehicle turned over by the winds that also uprooted trees in this neighborhood. Just a line of old oaks knocked down and onto homes. As we get closer to daybreak here, we're seeing a little more activity, more crews moving in, and that'll continue throughout the day here. The attitude of survivors here is one of disappointment, frustration, pain, obviously, with what's been lost, but also their resolve is strong. They say that they will come back here, but I think they're realizing, guys, that effort's going to take some time, because the recovery can't really begin in earnest until teams go through all of the battered areas like this one. This is still a very active rescue mission. These teams hoping that they can find someone pinned beneath the rubble here.
And Dasha, how have the people of Bowling Green responded to all of the devastation there? I mean, we can obviously see it right behind you. People, I assume, need help. What are local leaders saying about the best ways that people across the country can help out that community right now?
Yeah, people are shaken. That's the word I keep hearing. People are shaken and still trying to process all of this. The way that most folks I've met are processing is by helping each other out, helping their neighbors. But they do need more help from all around the country, all around the state. There are so many ways that you can help out. There are many donation options online. You can donate food. You can donate supplies. One thing, though, that I've been hearing that people need, especially right now, temperatures continue to drop to freezing or below overnight. And like I said, a lot of people still don't have power. So blankets, heaters, anything that can help people stay warm. And authorities continue to ask for blood donations. That is extremely needed right now. Find your nearest blood donation location, and that will be a huge help, guys.
And Jay, we know President Biden's scheduled to visit Mayfield tomorrow as part of his visit to the state. Very quickly, what type of federal help is on the ground there right now?
Yeah, Joe, the National Guard, obviously, but we've also seen FEMA here. We have seen some other federal teams out and helping out with the rescue and recovery effort here. It's help that's going to be needed for a long time.
Dasha Burns and Jay Gray, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Now we know at least 8 of the deaths from these tornadoes were workers at a Kentucky candle factory. 5 workers told NBC News that several colleagues had asked to leave before the tornado hit, but they say they were told they would be fired if they did. Now here's a reminder of what the storms did to this factory. On the left on your screen here is what it used to look like. On the right is what is left of the building. NBC News national reporter Dion Hampton broke this story and joins us now. Dion, good morning. So I know you spoke with some of those workers who were there Friday night. What did they tell you about what happened before the tornadoes hit and this desire of some of them to leave?
Yeah, appreciate you having me on. So I talked to 5 different workers. This story kind of came out of me going to a shelter where people who had lost all their possessions, their houses, who didn't have water, electricity, they were staying at. I went up there and I started talking to people, and I stumbled upon a guy named Mark Saxton who told me that he was working at the candle factory at the time the tornado was coming. A lot of the workers there were saying anywhere between 15 to 40 workers knew the tornado were coming and were worried and wanted to be able to leave so that they can go home and take shelter there with their loved ones or anywhere else that they thought was safe. But they were told, according to them, by managers there that had they left work as the storm approached, that they would have lost their jobs and that they would not have been welcomed back.
And what's the company saying about this?
Well, the company is denying the employees' allegations. In fairness, they're saying that, so they have very strange work shifts and work hours there. It seems almost like you can come as you please. So ever since COVID has started, they have an initiative where if you only want to work 2 hours, that's okay. You can come, leave after 2 hours. If you want to work 5 or 6 hours, you can come in for 5 or 6 hours, then you can leave. So they're saying that nobody was actually forced to stay there. But the employees there are countering. They're saying, while that actually may be true, the problem is the managers who were on duty that day, they have overarching authority to get rid of somebody or to fire somebody for any reason that they want to, and that decision will always stand.
And Dion, you just mentioned that you found this story by talking with people who were in that factory. These employees, these people you're talking to, I mean, they lost at least 8 of their coworkers, their friends. They've seen their community basically wiped out. Quickly, just tell us, how are they doing this morning?
Not good. Most of them have lost everything. I mean, these are survivors. These are people. One woman who I spoke to, she talked to me 2:30 in the morning yesterday from her hospital bed. While she was inside, and her coworkers were asking to leave, the tiles from the building fell on top of her, and the walls literally imploded and landed on her. She was stuck under a slab of concrete for 6 hours.
Wow. Oh, Dion, thank you so much. Incredible reporting.
In the wake of these tornadoes, the federal government is now investigating the deadly collapse at an Amazon warehouse in Illinois. 6 workers died after the roof of the warehouse collapsed. Now, the Occupational Health and Safety Administration, better known as OSHA, is opening up a probe. That's where we find NBC News correspondent Megan Fitzgerald this morning outside the warehouse in Edwardsville. Megan, good morning. So what is the latest on the investigation? What is OSHA looking to accomplish?
Joe, good morning to you. So OSHA is saying that they have launched this investigation. They have 6 months. And what they're going to be doing here is they're going to be looking to make sure that Amazon followed all of their guidelines as it relates to health and safety of employees. During this investigation, they'll be looking at things, for example, like the structural integrity of the building, making sure that everything was up to par. If they find any issues here, the company could be cited or even forced to pay a monetary fine. Joe.
So we're also hearing from Amazon on the incident. What are they saying now about all this?
Well, Amazon says that they did everything right. They tell us that there were sirens and alarms that were ringing in the minutes leading up to this tornado, that they reached out to drivers on the road, making sure that they were aware of the imminent threat to the area. They made sure that all 46 people inside the building sheltered in place, telling them to go to the north end of the building or the south end. But unfortunately, at around 8:30 Friday night, that tornado just ripped through the south end, killing 6 people. I wanted to take a listen to what an Amazon spokesperson had to say.
So we know that the building was constructed consistent with code. And so, obviously we want to go back and look at every aspect of this. There's always going to be tremendous learnings from any type of catastrophic event like this. And we want to make sure that our policies, our practices are consistent with any learnings that we have from this event and with all best practices.
So now we're talking about 3 investigations. You've got OSHA that's going to be investigating this, as well as the state of Illinois and Amazon, of course, saying that they have launched an investigation as well. Joe.
And Megan, in addition to the 6 who died, there are many survivors. What is the latest on those who did survive this warehouse collapse?
Yeah, these survivors are devastated. A lot of mixed emotions. Trauma, certainly, because they were mixed in the rubble, but also guilt because they were just, feet away from people who lost their lives. We spoke with one guy in particular who had the walls caving in on him. He thought he was going to die if it wasn't for one of his colleagues who helped bring him out to safety. I want you to take a listen to what he had to say.
I was concentrating on one thing, and that was breathing, because I was being crushed by that wall. And from the time that it did take, it went from I had a little room to none, and it started to crush my head at the end, and that was scary. I'm still thinking about those people that weren't as lucky as I was and their families, because I just can't imagine what they're going through. I can't.
Yeah, so just horrifying accounts of just those quick moments when this tornado passed through. We know that 40 people did survive. One person, though, is still in critical condition this morning, Joe.
All right, Megan Fitzgerald in Illinois. Thank you, Megan. One of the communities hit hardest by these tornadoes is Hopkins County in Kentucky. Authorities have confirmed at least 13 deaths there.
Yeah, recovery efforts will continue today as survivors grapple with the devastation and how to move forward. Joining us now is Ronnie Noel. He's a magistrate in Hopkins County, Kentucky. Magistrate Noel, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us and for your time today. First of all, just how are you? How's your community doing today? What have the last few days really been like for you?
It's been a wild roller coaster ride. We have a lot of things going on. The outpouring of help and support has been tremendous. Matter of fact, we're asking people that are sending donation supplies to pause. Don't stop sending. We are running out of space to store this stuff and distribute it. So in the next few days, we'll have a distribution center set up in Madisonville, which is the county seat for Dawson Springs. And there's been a Facebook page set up. Hopkins County Makes Christmas Happen gift drive. And you can go to that Facebook page today, and it'll show you several ways you can help Hopkins County financially and with supplies and gifts. So that Facebook page is Hopkins County Makes Christmas Happen gift drive.
We know that's a challenge a lot of communities face after disasters, as the donations pour in almost too quickly sometimes. We also know the American Red Cross telling people blood donations are also important right now, if you can do that in the area. Can you walk us through where you were when the tornadoes hit and what happened then?
Yes, the about 11 o'clock before the storm hit, I was contacted by the public works director here in the county. We went to the county garage and got a piece of equipment and started toward Dawson Springs. We'd already heard of damage, and we arrived in Dawson about midnight, and devastation had already hit there. And we took a inloader through the streets of Dawson Springs, just clearing a path so people could get to homes. We found a couple that their house had been destroyed and they were on oxygen, and we were able to clear a path so that the emergency first responders could get to them. And Ken Todd, Public Works Director here in Hopkins County, and myself, we left there about 6 a.m. just after daylight. We knew it was devastating and things looked bad there during the night, but when daylight came, it just heartbreaking.
We are thinking of you and grateful for the help you were able to give people as everything was unfolding that night. Magistrate, we'll keep in touch with you and keep in touch with your community and wish you all the best.
Stay safe.
Thanks for having me, and continue to pray for Hopkins County and Dawson Springs, Arlington, and Morton's Gap. We're still without power in towns that weren't affected by the storm, but hopefully power will be restored to them today.
Hopefully. We'll keep you guys in our thoughts and prayers. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
We do want to get a check on your morning news now weather.
Which means it's time for Bill Cairns to join us. Hi, Bill. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. And, we're still adding up the numbers. We're finding out how many tornadoes we had and how strong they were. But, I mean, the overall, the number that just jumped out the most is the number of fatalities. And today we will likely make this the #1 deadliest tornado in Kentucky's history. We have had confirmation that we had 6 EF3s. We haven't had the confirmation yet of how intense the one was that went through Mayfield, that Dawson Springs that the gentleman just mentioned. 75% of that town is gone. We think that could have been at least an EF4. So here's the number: 74 people, fatalities from this tornado. And look at when the other ones happened in Kentucky. Like the record breaker was the late 1800s or the early 1900s. Imagine the technology then. Like the people just probably didn't have much lead time at all. But even, in the modern day era, it's just incredible to have this many fatalities. It's just because this storm was on the ground for so long and it was so powerful. We do think it'll probably end up being at least an EF4 with that extreme damage category, possibly that EF5. So what's happening today? This December, the wild December weather continues. Temperatures today, 25 degrees warmer than normal in the middle of the country. We have a huge windstorm coming from the middle of the country. We're going to have wind gusts and record highs. The fire weather is going to be dangerous. We may even get severe weather in Minnesota as we go into Wednesday night and Thursday. In Minnesota, in the middle of December, that's insane. So tomorrow, record warmth continues, guys, with dozens likely. It's going to be a wild ride, it looks like, through the rest of this December. We may even have a big storm on the East Coast Christmas week, but we'll talk more about that in the days ahead.
Santa's not going to like that forecast. All right.
I like that forecast. Okay. Ready for some snow. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Bill. Today marks 1 year since the first person in the United States received a dose of an authorized coronavirus vaccine. It was on this day in 2020 that New York City nurse Sandra Lindsay received her first dose of the Pfizer vaccine, a moment that came after she spent months on the front lines of the pandemic. Sandra will join us with her reflections on this day in our next hour. But first, let's take a look at where we are 1 year after the vaccine rollout began. Nearly 61% of all Americans are now fully vaccinated against COVID-19, with kids as young as 5 now eligible for the shot, and millions more people getting a booster dose. But even with progress on the vaccine front, hospitals fear their emergency rooms will still look a lot like they did in December 2020, when cases surged to one of the highest points in the pandemic. Some hospitals are already seeing that. An NBC News count finds a little more than 74% of all hospital beds are now filled up nationwide. With two variants, Delta and Omicron, the number of cases are ticking up, and the holidays could make it even worse. Let's bring in Dr. Bob Lahita. He's a professor at the Hackensack Meridian School of Medicine and the director of the Institute for Autoimmune and Rheumatic Diseases at St. Joseph Health. Dr. Bob, good to have you with us. When you think about that one-year marker I just mentioned, what do you make of where we are right now in the pandemic? Did you expect hospitals would be this concerned about another surge a year into the vaccine rollout?
Yes, Joe, I think we did think that Thanksgiving and certainly the Christmas holidays coming would result in a surge. We never imagined another variant like the Omicron variant, but we are seeing exactly what was predicted. And we would like to see that vaccination rate about 80% instead of 61%. So, yeah, we're somewhat concerned, and we're very worried about hospital capacity, frankly.
Yeah, especially with so much left this winter. Now, we want to talk about another major development this morning. Pfizer released the results of its COVID antiviral pill. The study shows it can reduce the risk of hospitalization or death by 89% if it's taken within the first 3 days of symptoms. So how much of a game changer would a pill like this be, especially as we're potentially heading into another surge?
Now, that would be a major game changer, and it would save a lot of lives, because if you can take this pill, you can reduce the death by, as you said, 70 to 80% if given within 3 days of the beginnings of symptoms. And that's really, really amazing. Now, the drug has to be given with another agent called ritonavir, and it's a 5-day course. And it should, the data were so impressive, the FDA should approve it somewhere about March or April, I would imagine.
And Dr. Bob, let's talk about the Omicron variant. The UK now reporting its first death tied to this new strain. So far, we know the majority of Omicron cases have been mild. So quickly on this one, but what should people know when they do hear about this death?
Well, this death was a big surprise to me. Actually, there are so many cases in Britain that the booster shot is overwhelmed. People are lining up in droves to get it. 44% of the cases in London are due to the Omicron variant. And I dare say we're going to see that here in the U.S. and I predicted by March 1st, it'll be the major variant. Right now, it's still Delta, and Delta is still very deadly. So get out there and get your booster shots as soon as you can.
Good advice. Dr. Bob Lahita helping us break down all these major pandemic headlines. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.